My name is George Gossage, and I want to welcome each and every one of you to this evening's webinar. Keep in mind the purpose of tonight's presentation is to simply give you an overview, some insight to this remarkable technology that we're so excited about bringing it to the marketplace. And we're so excited about it, guys, because based on 11 months of involvement, if this is any indicator in terms of what's to come, Beamer will no doubt have its place in the medical history books. And we feel that the Beamer technology has the ability to literally change healthcare as we know it. Well, I'm happy to tell you that tonight we're actually going to be discussing Beamer technology. And when you really understand it, you'll appreciate why we actually call it a Nobel Prize worthy technology. You see, in America, we got the healthcare puzzle backwards. We're told that the insurance cards that we carry in our wallets and in our purses, that's our health insurance card. And the reality, you guys, it is the exact opposite, because you never use it when you're healthy. We only use it when we're sick, or if there's a crisis care intervention of some sort that needs to be tended to. And so in reality, that's nothing more than sickness care. What we're going to be talking about tonight, you guys, is real health, real life insurance. So imagine having the ultimate health insurance policy that money can buy for you and your family for no more than a cup of coffee per day. So I just want you guys to sit back. There's no high pressure here. This is essentially an invitation to learn, start to dig in on Beamer, and this is one of those rare occasions where the deeper and the closer that you look into Beamer, the more impressive it really becomes. And then it's at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you're going to want to do like I did, like the person that invited you, like over 1 million people around the world have already said yes to Beamer, because at the end of the day, guys, it makes total sense. And so here's our invitation. As you see that young lady stretched across that little nice chair, she's actually laying on our Beamer full body applicator. And guys, so the invitation is this: Beamer, 8 minutes twice a day. It's something that anybody and everybody can do, particularly if your health is of importance to you. You see, during those 8 minutes twice a day, Beamer has the ability to influence your circulatory system in a way that nothing else in the world can. The circulatory system, guys, we call that the river of life. Even in the Bible, they tell you the life is in the blood. So you see, as you lay on that full body applicator with that control box in your, on the right side of your screen there, imagine this thing has the ability to generate a patented energy signal configuration known as the Beamer wave. And through that full body applicator, that energy, if you will, is transferred to your body. So you get a systemic session over the course of those 8 minutes, and that signal configuration has the ability to communicate with your cells. And at the end of the day, guys, what we're talking about is influencing blood flow. I think you'd all agree. I mean, when you think about the blood, what is the blood's role here? Isn't it the blood that carries the oxygen and the nutrients to the cell? It's also the blood that takes away the toxins from the cell. So imagine 8 minutes twice a day by simply improving blood flow, your circulation, if you will. Imagine all of the benefits that you're looking at on your screen. Nutrition, the nutrients and oxygen go to the cell, waste gets disposed of, you sleep better than you've had in years, if not ever. You got more energy than you know what to do with. That mental clarity and that focus and concentration is there, kind of like what it was, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And guys, here's the cool thing. We're just learning about Beamer here in the United States, but Beamer is not on trial. Beamer has been out there for the past 17 years. We just now have the good fortune to benefit from it. And guys, the timing for America is absolutely perfect. The reality is this is how America rolls today. If you're honest with yourself, if you're not using Beamer, chances are on a scale of 1 to 10, from a 10 being I got the ultimate energy that I could want. I'm sleeping as good as possible. I got that spring in my step, and I'm really excited about this thing called life. and 0 being basically I'm dead. And so the reality is most of Americans, if they're honest with themselves, they would rate themselves somewhere between a level 3 and a level 4. On your screen there, you're looking at all of these symptoms, if you will. The number one complaint at the doctor today, you guys, is the fact that I'm tired. I've got no energy to get throughout my day. I need that mid-afternoon nap. We know that today the stress levels are as high as they've ever been, and we just have got that discomfort, that restless feeling. We just know that something isn't right. And so as you're looking at those symptoms, guys, could it be a function of something as simple as a disrupted blood flow or circulatory system? Think about it logically, right? If you're disrupting the blood flow, doesn't it stand to reason that less blood flow going around, that means that less oxygen and nutrients are getting to the cell. That means that more toxins are staying inside of that cell, and that means that you got lower cardiac function. And guys, that's what the deal is going around, not just in America, but all over the world. And because of the stress levels, because of the environmental toxins, which are also at all-time high, when you look at our society, we are now a sedentary society. Guys, there's a saying today, and that is sitting is today smoking. Our bodies are not designed to sit all day long, because the more that you sit, the less circulatory action you got going on. We all know the impact that fast food has had, not just on our country, but all over the world. And the end result is, you guys, is we've got a healthcare crisis on our hands at literally epidemic proportions. And as a people, as a family, you know what? It's up to us to really start to change the landscape of this whole philosophy as it relates to healthcare. And I love the quote there on your screen that Edison talks about. The doctors of the future will give no medicine, but they're going to teach the people how the body works, the importance of diet, right, and the cause and prevention of disease. That's the mentality we've got to get back to, you guys, because right now, if you really understand our healthcare model, it's a sickness model that's really based upon managing disease and treating symptoms. You're looking on your screen a book I would recommend to each and every one of you, Our Daily Meds, Melody Peterson. Everything in there is documented. And the bottom line is, you guys, is America is literally hooked on prescription drugs, so much so that we actually outspend the rest of the industrialized world combined as it relates to prescription drugs. That's absolutely pathetic, you guys. And the end result, again, is we are at epidemic proportions. Don't take my word for it. What you're looking at now are the government statistics dating back to 1985, just over 30 years ago, guys. And the chart and the color that you're paying attention to is that baby blue that you see mostly on the western part of the country. So we're going to fast forward just 5 years. Notice there's been a pretty significant shift in terms of the grade of blue, if you will, or the shade of blue. Now we go to 2000. Notice there's just one blue square in the middle, that light blue. And guys, in 25 years, there's absolutely no blue whatsoever. Now, this is as it relates to chronic illness and obesity. Now, I think we would all agree we are now into 2016. Based upon that progression that you just saw, I think we'd all agree that 2016, the chart is even more damaging, if you will. And so it isn't just a situation that's, reserved for the USA. Now, epidemic proportions all over the world as it relates to chronic illness and obesity. When you think about the impact that diabetes by itself will have on the global healthcare systems, it is literally, not sustainable. You see, every one of you on tonight's webinar, I'll bet you know at least 3, if not 5, 10, perhaps even 20 people that have diabetes. And it's not just the adults any longer, it's also kids, 5, 6, 7 years old are now coming up with diabetic, symptoms. And if you look at the cost of diabetes, again, these are the government statistics, in less than 20 years, we will be spending on diabetes and obesity what we're spending on the entire healthcare equation, you guys. And by the way, that is north of $3 trillion. So imagine that's more than most countries' GDP. We spent over $3 trillion, and yet we don't even rank in the top 40 as it relates to longevity and overall well-being. So when you look at the fact that cardiovascular disease is the leading killer all over the world. So getting back to Beamer, imagine 8 minutes twice a day. If all Beamer did, you guys, is lighten the load on that ticker of ours, that heart, that muscle that's no bigger than the size of your fist. If all Beamer did 8 minutes twice a day was ease the load on that, that in and of itself would be worth the price of entry. Beamer right now is registered with the FDA as a Class 1 medical device. We've submitted the paperwork to them for Class 2 approval. Now, here's the kicker of tonight's webinar. Because of where we are during, in this approval phase, if you will, we are not actually even allowed to discuss what Beamer, the real details in terms of what Beamer is world-renowned and famous for, okay? Now, understand the Class 2 approval that we're seeking from the FDA, we've already been granted that and then some in over 40 countries around the world, most of that being over in Europe, okay? We feel very good about the exchange back and forth, so it's now just a function of time. As you're doing your due diligence, and keep in mind we want you to, you're going to understand that there's nothing like Beamer anywhere in the world, and it is protected by 5 very strong, very broad patents. In Germany alone, imagine, Beamer's in over 4,000 hospitals and universities and clinical settings. And since we're talking about Germany and most of Europe for that matter, guys, over there, they're on the hook for healthcare. And so when you're footing the bill for healthcare, of course it stands to reason to come up with ways to curb healthcare costs. And if you could do it in non-surgical, non-chemically related fashion, that's all the better. So over there, they are much further along, you guys, as it relates to real wellness and real health care. Why? It's because they're on the hook for it. And that's actually what started the entire search for Beamer, okay? And I'm going to come back to that in a couple slides. Now, if you're that individual, you could actually be a doctor or practitioner of some sort on tonight's webinar. If you need the science, you need all the details, you want the studies, you want to know what Beamer's been actually up to over the past 17 years, start with PubMed and then get back to the person that invited you. I'm happy to tell you that we've got all of the details, all the documents, all the studies that you're going to need to satisfy your own due diligence. But as you're doing your due diligence, also understand, you guys, there's a little organization called NASA that's done some crazy due diligence. And I think we would all agree that no one on tonight's webinar has the ability to dissect technology to the degree that Beamer can. That NASA can. And understand, NASA's interest was to help the astronauts, because most people don't understand when these astronauts, they leave the Earth's atmosphere, right, and they get into that zero gravity situation, that wreaks havoc on them physically as it relates to bone density loss and muscle atrophy. So without boring you with the details, once NASA did their due diligence, we actually, as of March of last year, we signed a joint venture agreement with them. And the game plan here is we're developing undergarments for the astronauts so they get help as it relates to blood flow and circulation while they're in outer space. And so what the Germans have done, what Beamer has already figured out the way, you guys, is to take the Beamer technology that you saw that's being transmitted through that full body applicator. They are now able to put it into fabric, weave it into textiles and fabric. And so imagine undergarments for the astronauts, which then opens the door for another product category for us down the road, which will be in the space of wearables. Okay? As you look at the picture on your screen, this iceberg principle, you see, we only pay attention to the 10% that shows. Sometimes I crack up. People say, well, why do I need Beamer? I'm healthy. Well, just because you don't show any symptoms at the time doesn't necessarily mean that you're healthy. Think about it. 90% of that iceberg is below the surface, right? I relate to that as our body's internal terrain, right? Internal terrain. So think about it. If that internal terrain has been compromised and now you've got less blood flowing, that means that less oxygen and nutrients getting to the cell. That means that more waste is staying in the cell, and that means a lower cardiac function. So think of this now as just a recipe for trouble. And so now it becomes a function of, is it going to be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? before you get that dreadful news from the doctor. And then how America treats that situation is we are going to manage the disease and for the rest of your life, and we're going to just deal with the symptoms. The reason that we're attracting so many, awesome, some of the brightest healthcare minds in our country, because these guys clearly get the only way that you're going to affect health long term is you got to change the terrain inside, and that's exactly what Beamer's function is, and it's absolutely awesome. When you look at our circulatory system, we all been blessed with trillions of cells, right? And if you think about the number one requirement for the cell is oxygen. Oxygen, nutrients in, waste getting out. That's really the formula, guys. And keep this in mind. Getting rid of the toxins is just as important as is the oxygen and the nutrients getting in. Now, this is the screen. If you do nothing else tonight, if you catch nothing else of tonight's presentation, this is the screen that you really want to pay attention to, because this right now represents our circulatory system, which we call the river of life. And the part of our circulatory system, you guys, that we're familiar with, that also your cardiologist is familiar with, are arteries and veins. These are the big guys. These are the big carriers of blood to and from, right? This is the part of the cardiovascular system that we could affect. The cardiologist could do the stents, they could do the bypass, they could even do a heart transplant. As remarkable as that is, we all know that that is indeed the case. But if you do the math there, 11 and a half and 14 and a half, that's only, and the key word here is only, that's only 26% of our circulatory system. And I don't know about you, but I'm saying to myself, okay, so where's the rest of it? And the rest of it is in these things called microvessels, right? Imagine having 70,000 plus miles of these things called microvessels. And to give you an idea how tiny, pluck out a strand of hair, now chop it up by at least 7. That will give you an idea how tiny microvessels are. Okay, so you were invited to learn about Beamer. So here's the thing. Beamer, you guys, has the ability to influence the most important part of your circulatory system in a way that nothing else in the world can. And when we talk about Nobel Prize worthy technology, understand, guys, prior to Beamer coming along, there's been no way to influence the most important part of your circulatory system in any meaningful fashion. Drugs do not affect that portion of your circulatory system because there's no receptors there. And drugs will never be able to influence that part of your circulatory system. That's where Beamer shines, and that's what we're seeking approval for, which, by the way, we've already been granted, as we talked about, in over 40 countries, right? So when you look at the arteries, right, they carry the good stuff in. You know, the blood coming through the arteries, they're red. Why? Because they're loaded with nutrients. They're full of oxygen. And it's at that capillary level where that exchange takes place. Oxygen and nutrients go in. Waste is then transported out by way of the veins. They're the ones that are taking that metabolic waste, the carbon dioxide. And if you remember the chart, 11 and a half went to the arteries, and 14 and a half actually goes to the veins. Why is that more? Because they're the ones carrying out the waste, okay? But the magic, you guys, is what happens at that capillary or that exchange. That's where all of the good stuff takes place. So again, back to this circulation. And again, I think we would all agree when that circulatory system is limited, that means less oxygen and nutrients in, more waste staying behind, and that, again, is not good for us, as we all know. Now, needless to say, if you could open up the pathways, right, open up that circulatory system, now more oxygen and nutrients get in, waste is now getting transported out of there, and you start to feel better than you have literally in years. So what you're looking at on your screen right now, it's not an ant farm. It's not the 405 in Southern California, guys. This is a real live human being. And what we're there showing you is disrupted blood flow, okay? By the way, this is done with equipment that costs about 25 million euro to develop. This is a real live human being, so that will give you an idea of a compromised circulatory system. And notice the tiny little guys there. Look at all of the breaks in between. Wherever you see a break, it's kind of like an ant farm, right? Wherever you see a break, there's literally a break there from oxygen and nutrients getting in and waste getting out. Now, let's have something to compare with. Now, imagine this. This is functional blood flow. Notice how much faster and more rapid and smoother the blood is flowing, and there's very little breaks going on in those tiny little guys, right? So to give you a side-by-side comparison, a little frame of reference, that's what most of the world is functioning on the left. And I don't know about you all, but I've been asking myself, okay, so if that's how most people are functioning on the left, how do we get to the right side of that screen? And the most efficient way to do that, 8 minutes twice a day with Beamer, okay? As you're doing your homework, understand because of the enormous success that Beamer's had in the marketplace, we've attracted some of these so-called competitors. And I say that so-called because that's exactly what they are. They're comparing themselves to Beamer. Beamer compares themselves to no one. So these guys are going to suggest to you because of their patented signal configuration, they could do what Beamer can and then some. Well, as you look at your screen, the reality is how many stimulations per second are those guys running off of as it relates to how many Beamer is stimulating. As you see, it's 1,200 stimulations per second, okay? Now, these other guys, they're what are called PEMF units, right? Pulsed electromagnetic field type of technologies, and they're good if you're looking for, a little pain reduction and just a little discomfort out of the way. That's what those guys are good for. Beamer essentially gives you that, but where Beamer is famous for is its impact on the circulatory system. That's where we're head and shoulders, you guys, above and beyond anything and everything. So when you're laying on that full body applicator, there's 3 sets of coils that actually transfer that Beamer signal to you. The current is very low, as you can see, 3.5 to 35 microtesla. To give you something to compare that to, your cell phone is 600 microtesla. So think of the patented Beamer signal configuration as the song, and that song has the ability to communicate with your cells in an unbelievable fashion, and then you get to dictate the intensity. Think of that as the volume by simply pressing a button or two on the device. What you're going to find out is Beamer's not just sitting on their laurels, you guys. I mean, these guys are really heavily vested in R&D. 17 years ago, where the first Beamer hit the streets, imagine 1 8-minute session, the effect of that lasted only up to 1 hour, and yet people were still marveling at the results. Version 2.0 comes along now, 1 8-minute session. The effects are good for up to 4 hours. Today's technology, you guys, 1 8-minute session, the effects of it are as good for anywhere from 12 to 16 hours. So one of the patents, right, one of the 5 patents is this thing called the plus signal. We call that the rhythm giver. And so when you start out your day, think about it. You're going to go out there now, you against the world, and regardless of what industry you're in, the reality is to get through your day, we need what? We need more energy. We want to feel stronger. We need that mental clarity. We need that focus to get the job done. That's what the Beamer Plus technology or that signal gets to you, right? You're looking at Dr. Rainier Klopp. So this guy was commissioned by the government of Germany to figure out a way to help the elderly population, the senior market, as it related to circulatory issues, because they were seeing the expenses were just skyrocketing. And it was actually Dr. Rainier Klopp, one of the leading, if not the leading authority in the world as it relates to this thing called microcirculation. He actually sought Beamer out. He found Beamer, and he actually went out to figure it out and proved himself in his laboratory that Beamer was absolutely an amazing technology that he was going to align himself with. So what he did with his crew over at the Institute of Microcirculation a little over 2 years ago, actually it's 3 years ago now, they actually took today's Beamer, not the Beamer of 17 years ago that some of our so-called competitors are doing side-by-side comparisons with, and he needed to know deep down, was Beamer as good, if not better, than all these so-called competitors? And guys, we actually did 4 different parameters. You're looking at only one of them. The only reason we're looking at just one, because again, because of where we are, that FDA Class 2 approval, We can't get into specifics here, but suffice it to say that Beamer is in orange. Interestingly enough, day 3, they shut all of the devices off because what they were looking to identify is what was the residual effect of each and every one of these units. And notice on day 4, the residual effect from Beamer is actually at a higher point than any of these other so-called competitors, even at their peak stages, right? Now, keep in mind, this is one of the leading authorities in the world that he and his crew at the Institute of Microcirculation actually did side-by-side comparisons. So when Dr. Klopp tells you that Beamer is no doubt the most effective and widely researched technology of this kind in the marketplace, that is exactly what it is. So let's talk about now, what does it actually take to own Beamer, right? And so it actually comes in 2 options. You're looking at the Beamer Classic. It comes with the B box. That's the actual brains behind it, if you will. And you're going to simply depress buttons 1 through 10, depending upon the time of the day and what the body's needs are. And that energy signal configuration is transferred to the body by way of B Body Classic. That's the full body applicator. B Spot is for the very specific targeted attention, right? And then the B Scan is designed to actually pick up the Beamer signal just to give you that sense of comfort that something is actually happening to your body. And the reason we do that is because Beamer does not put off any kind of heat. You're not going to get a massaging sensation or anything like that. You're going to lay on that full body applicator. And guys, it took me about 2 weeks for me to start to feel anything. Part of the reason I moved down to Florida, my hands and my feet have been cold ever since I could remember. I mean, ice cold, clammy, both my hands and in my feet. And after about 2 weeks of doing Beamer twice a day, I could literally start to feel that warming, tingling sensation, especially in my hands and in my feet. And I knew that something really special was going on. So Beamer Classic, the price for Beamer Classic, you guys, is $42.90. So that's option number 1. Option number 2 is for a professional model. This is what 98% of our customers are choosing. And the main reason is you guys, is with the professional model, you can actually do 2 different modalities at the same time, simultaneously of each other, right? Independent of each other, excuse me. So, and along with that, you actually get 2 additional applicators. D-pad, we'll talk about what some of the uses and applications of that are here in just a few minutes. And then B-Light is actually for the skin. B-Light by itself is a $700 value. The price point on Beamer Professional is $59.90. And guys, let me tell you, it will be the best $59.90 you will ever spend. To give you an idea, of what I'm dealing with, I'm self-employed, my wife and I, 3 kids. I pay $1,497 and change every single month for my premiums, right? Round that off, that's about $18,000 in premiums alone. On top of that, I pay the first $6,250 deductible. For me, if it's my family, it's $12,500. That essentially equates to 4 Beamer Professionals every single year before the insurance company drops 1 dime. Beamer actually comes with a 3-year warranty. Keep in mind, you guys, these are built by Germans. German engineering, Swiss craftsmanship. You got the best of both worlds. Lifetime updates. And on our professional model, especially, just like your iPhone, anytime that there's a software upgrade, you can actually download that from the internet, and then there's a USB port on the side of that control box, and you can stay updated, right? User and technical hotline, Dr. Joshua Burka, absolutely amazing individual. He's our medical director. He, along with his crew, they make themselves available 3 days a week. So if people are customers or if our distributors, if they've got any kind of health challenges as it relates to the usage of Beamer, that's what that user hotline is for. It's absolutely an awesome value add. And again, 1 million very excited users all over the world. With our professional model, guys, the use is very simple and easy. I'm over here with my mom and dad here in Northwest Indiana. And guys, they've never been on a computer, ever. And they use Beamer. They're able to navigate it very simply because with this unit, it's just a function of purple, blue, yellow, or red. Purple is for the full body applicator. Blue is for the individual, applicators. And then yellow is to sleep on, and red is for the skin. We're going to talk about that here shortly. So as it relates to the full body applicator, this gentleman obviously has got it on his couch. You can put it in your bed. I prefer it on the carpet, on the floor. You can put it in a chair, wherever you like. And you don't necessarily even have to lay on top of it. You could actually drape it over somebody if, let's just say, they're bound to a wheelchair. They're just not able to get on top of it. It serves the same function. So that's B-Body, the full body applicator. B-Pad is phenomenal. That young lady's got it draped over her shoulder. There's many different uses and applications for this. This is one of my favorite accessories because she uses it across her shoulder. You could drape it around your neck. I broke my back when I was 18 years old. I've had horrendous lower back pain and discomfort. And what I love to do is I love to take B-Pad, you guys, from the base of my neck all the way vertically down my spine. And I do a 20-minute session on that after I'm done with that full body applicator. And it's enabled me to do things I never thought I would do again. Also, think about this. B-Pad, if you draped it across your midsection, what's there are all of the good stuff. You know, your kidneys, your liver, your pancreas, your spleen, the colon. I mean, all those vital organs are there. So while you're laying on that full body applicator, now you're giving that whole midsection some additional attention. And it's amazing the results that people are reporting from that little ritual. So those are just some of the uses for B-Pad. B-Spot is that individual has on his elbow, right? Targeted attention, because both the B-Pad, what we just saw, and the B-Spot, they're actually 3 times as strong as that full body applicator is. One of the uses that many eye care professionals, from surgeons, all in different parts of the country, what they're recommending is that their patients, while they're laying on the full body applicator, they're actually putting B-Spot on the temple for 4 minutes at a time. And keep in mind, your eyes are all made of those tiny little micro vessels, guys. And not me saying it, but the doctors are reporting unbelievable results and improvement in eye health. Don't take my word for it. It's out there if you want to go search it out. Okay, so that's B-Spot. B-Light is actually phenomenal for the skin. Any kind of skin-related condition, B-Light is phenomenal for that. Again, while you're laying on that full body applicator, monochromatic LED is phenomenal for the skin. And so that's what we're looking at there. The telltale sign, and I know as humans, many times we have that placebo effect. We want to believe something so bad, it's pretty amazing what you can convince the mind to do. But who doesn't understand placebo at all are your pets. Invariably, talk to any Beamer owner that has a pet in the house. As soon as that full body applicator is turned on, for that entire 8 minutes, that pet is going to come park itself on that full body applicator, and it will not move. And believe it or not, we've got people down in Florida that are buying Beamer more so for their pets, you guys, than they are for themselves or their family members. Absolutely amazing results with pets. So we talked about human, right? We talked about animal health. Also, leaves and agriculture, they've got their plants, they've got their own little circulatory system. So while we were in Liechtenstein, we got a little sneak peek at some of the things that they're doing in that world. Suffice it to say that it's absolutely amazing what happens when that Beamer, that patented signal configuration, that technology, that wave of the future has the impact on seed and agriculture, as you're seeing on your screen. Absolutely awesome. We spend the first half of our lives, guys, chasing money. At the end of the day, that's what we're doing because that's what we're supposed to do. Whether it's a career in the corporate world, whether it's growing your own business, whether you're a professional athlete, and many times we do that at the expense of our health. Then the second half of our lives, we're actually spending the wealth to try to regain the health. Is it specific to us? No, it actually dates back to the 18th century with Voltaire. So as we wrap up on the product portion of it, can I afford it? I think the better question that you got to ask yourself, can I afford not to? We talked about the fact that the stress levels are at all-time high. We talked about the idea that toxins, what's in the air, what's in the water, what's in the ground is greater than they've ever been. We know that we are a sedentary lifestyle society, you guys. We're sitting and sitting and sitting, which is terrible for circulation. We've become a nation of fast food addicts, and we're now literally hooked on prescription drugs. That, my friend, is a recipe for disaster. And so we got to get back to this mentality of real wealth, real health insurance. And so what is your plan for that? And I'm going to suggest to you that whatever that plan is, if you don't have one, you may start to think about getting one. But Beamer, twice a day for less than a cup of coffee for you and your family. And keep in mind, no disrespect to China, these are built over with German engineering, Swiss craftsmanship. They're designed to last. So when you extrapolate Beamer over a minimum, say, of 10 years of use, for you and your family, it really breaks down to this fact. It's something you absolutely got to have. So as we wrap up, 8 minutes twice a day. Again, what we're talking about is improving general blood flow, and as a result of that, more strength, more energy, better concentration, better performance, more relaxation, better sleep than you've ever had or you've had in many, many years. And guys, that is just to name a few. At the end of the day, you got to decide based upon what we talked about this evening, if this makes sense to pursue further. And I would highly encourage you to take the time, wrap your head around what's really here, go start to do your own homework. You're going to be absolutely blown away with what you discover. And then you're going to want to get back to that individual and thank them for introducing Beamer to you, because this is one of those rare occasions where tonight is one of the most important days of your life. I remember when I got that call from my friend Kevin in San Diego, where he introduced me to Beamer. I will be forever grateful to that guy, because it has changed my life, my family's life, and the lives of literally thousands upon thousands of people in America here in just the short time that we've been around it, which, by the way, is not even a full year. So, guys, of course, we can't reverse the biological clock, but we can certainly add more quality to the remaining years, and that's what it's about. It's about the quality of life. As I think we would all agree, what good is the wealth, what good is the equity and all the accounts and the cars and the toys if you do not have your health along the way?